Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Lynch Oz, and this is a new documentary from director Alexandre O. Philippe, who has had a long career of making films related to other filmmakers, from William Friedkin to George Lucas, and now David Lynch. And this film takes a look at Lynch's deep-rooted connection to the classic Victor Fleming film, The Wizard of Oz. And what was so fascinating was I got to see this in a small independent theater, the Fine Arts Theater in Asheville, North Carolina, when I was visiting my brother and my nephews. And it's an old school theater. You walk in, it has the big, thick curtains that lift, and the screen is up there on the wall. And what was fascinating as these curtains lift, this film starts with these giant green curtains, just like The Wizard of Oz. And they open and you realize, think about all the big red curtains that you see in David Lynch's films, especially in some of those most unnerving and strange scenes in one of Lynch's most famous projects, Twin Peaks. And it was such a strange circumstance, but as we open to this very eerie and unnerving music and this visual palette, we have Aaron Lawrence's atmospheric kind of score coming in, and we see Rodney Asher's really creepy face popping up and welcoming us to this series of edited together video essays that have actual filmmakers dive deep into the connections and the influences of The Wizard of Oz in a grand perspective, but as it narrows down specifically to how David Lynch has incorporated this film and his influences from this film into his own works. Whether they're very, very clear and right there in your face, like Wild Heart, or you see like how these elements are filtered into Twin Peaks from like a filmmaking perspective, which they're definitely there, and after watching this film I can never unsee them. There's so many of these layers, and each of these essays do such a great job of capturing the influences. And it's a fascinating thing to listen to, and hearing each of these filmmakers' perspectives, from Amy Nicholson, who is somebody who spends a lot of time breaking down film, and I've seen her give her perspectives from Easy Talk, and you have Asher, who I already brought up, but he specifically has created films like Room 237 and Glitch in the Matrix, a very controversial documentarian in his own right, giving this perspective on how Lynch builds his films on some of the foundation of what The Wizard of Oz brought to the table. You have John Waters and Karen Kusimov, two very talented and different filmmakers, and seeing how each of them bring their ideas forward. And you have Benson and Moorhead and David Lowery, who each of them have these fascinating otherworldly kind of perspectives on their filmmaking, which feels very connected to how Lynch gives his perspectives and creates such a unique and specific experience. But it's fascinating hearing filmmakers on a filmmaker and how film has influenced their filmmaking. Sit with that one for a second. This is exactly what this film is. It's a series of essays that are compelling and thought-provoking, edited together, and I was a little concerned about how like this was just going to end off a cliff at the end of the last essay, but I think the last essay fits so perfectly because it has such a conclusion to it that it feels like it pulls each of these other essays together and kind of gives us this ending that feels satisfying and like we felt like we've learned something and have got a whole new perspective. It made me want to walk out of the theater and go watch David Lynch films. It made me want to rewatch The Wizard of Oz. And it's so fascinating how much a film can impact you in such a way, and this documentary certainly did that. It is just a bunch of essays put together. It is very cinephile hard kind of film. Not everybody's going to enjoy this film. But if you love cinema, you love filmmaking, especially if you're a fan of The Wizard of Oz or David Lynch, there's a much stronger anchor there too. But in general, if you really are about the filmmaking process and the creative process of trying to tell a story with ideas, this is a fascinating ride and a must-see. But those are my thoughts on Lynch Oz. Let me know what you think and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.